It has been a busy week. As of taping, at war, FEMA ran a test to see how effectively our phones could scare the shit out of us. And Kevin McCarthy was the victim of the first hacker of the House. It left North Carolina Representative Patrick McHenry, Patton Oswalt's a ventriloquist dummy, serving the angry after McCarthy's ousting.
Chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the chair.
That man is mad, which is only slightly undermined by the fact that he's dressed like a 4-year-old who's going to fuck up the whole wedding. Since For the New Speaker will likely be held this week, and so far the frontrunners seem to be far-right Jim Jordan or Steve Scalise without the baggage. And you know who described him as that? He did! And to describe yourself as David KKK without the baggage is a choice, because that man is all baggage. Without it, he's just the crypt keeper with a pat. Pretty clear that the Republican Party is being controlled by the absolute extremes, but not just nationally, at the local level too. And to show you, look at the mayoral race unfolding in the city of Franklin, Tennessee, where their current Republican mayor is facing this woman, Gabrielle Hansolderman. She's branded herself as a hardcore MAGA candidate and has posted photos of herself at Mar-a-Lago. And look how happy she who just dined out on a well-done steak and read some classified documents on the toilet. Anyway, back in April, Hansen's Pride event, arguing that its participants couldn't be trusted around children and offering this critique of previous performers.
In one of the pictures, one of the misfits, she's clad in an Elmo-themed drag outfit, which I'm sure this could create confusion in their mind as to what's being represented.
Okay, but children from walking around Times Square too, because see Olaf from Frozen with his head popped off, smoking a Black and Mild, and there's someone wearing eyeshadow in an Elmo-themed bodysuit. Also, for the record, her name is Jaden Dior Fierce, not remotely her finest work, because she is constantly serving cartoon looks. We ever seen a mishap now? Hansen also tried to pressure the Nashville airport out of funding a Juneteenth celebration, saying, I don't want my tax hits going to radical agendas. And with all due respect, you're talking to an airport, Gabrielle. It doesn't care about you. It doesn't. An airport. The only food available is either dill pickle almonds or brisket nachos with no middle ground. It's a they'll sell your lost luggage. The airport is a cruel, unfeeling dimension, uninterested in your culture war bullshit. Now, Singleton heard Base posting photos of diverse groups of supporters, including this one, labelled as an executive women's club, who she said had provided encouragement with the hashtag #VoteHansen. But while that might seem like an endorsement from those women, just watch what happened when a local reporter tried a simple question.
Do you support Gabrielle Hansen?
I do not. I actually do not know who that is.
After several social media at a restaurant in Chicago, Hansen posted an update on Facebook claiming, these are all my friends that have relocated to Nashville with me. The women say, that's a lie. Any message you would have for her?
I would encourage her to, she can take photos with those looks if she's looking for supporters. There's no need to comb pictures on the internet to make up a story.
Ow! Not only are those women clearly not your friends, you definitely just united them against you. I read your post in the group chat, and the replies are still going right now. And the thing is, had shit a truly ridiculous amount of times. Earlier this year, during a podcast interview, she claimed to have predicted the Covenant school shooting in Nashville. About it, chalking it up to what could have been a Holy Spirit thing. What's more, she also claimed that she told a police officer about that different issue. The problem is, that same local reporter tracked down that officer's body cam video, which told a different story.
She never mentions anything remotely like the Covenant School shooting. No mention of a premonition, no mention of an active shooter. And Hansen's fabrications have gone even further in a talk radio interview, questioning how actress Melissa Joan Hart happened to be near Covenant children who were trying to escape.
Well, maybe that's why Melissa Joan Hart was there. She must have known it was going to happen also.
Melissa Joan Hart psychically knows when a school shooting is about to happen? That is not something an elected official, Disney Channel exec, probably screamed in 2002 after inhaling a metric ton of cocaine. And before we go and acknowledge that reporter, Phil Williams, because he's been all over this story, and we featured his work on this show a bunch in the past. If you are a politician, his foot on your goddamn neck. His official News Channel 5 bio features a quote from a Nashville political strat. Call your PR person. If Phil Williams calls, call your lawyer because you are in trouble. This is a bad round with Phil Williams. And it seems Gabrielle Hansen is currently in her finding out era when it comes to her dealings with him because weird new context around her life. Remember her bullshit outrage over the local Pride event? Well, Phil discovered something that a hell of a double standard.
Children seeing images that they could not unsee was why the Franklin alderman said she tried to block a Pride celebration. In a podcast interview, it was a question of basic morality. Yet where was her morality during Chicago's 2008 Pride policy? At the time, Tom Hansen was running a Republican campaign for Congress, and organizers agreed to let him in. He told the Loot, so it just came to me. I said, maybe I'll wear an American flag Speedo. And my wife said, if you do that, I'll hold you.
So, just to recap, snatched Elmo, irreparably harmful to children. Star-Spangled Ball bag here, that's apparently... And I'm not here to police anyone else's drag, but... Is he tucked? It was June, though. But anyway, if all that wasn't enough, just this yet another scandal, this time involving an eye-catching group that showed up to support and protect her at a candidate forum.
The man on the left is shown anti-Semitism watchdog group as, quote, a disturbed neo-Nazi and Holocaust denier with a documented history of violence. Then there's Brad Lewis. He's the operator of the Lewis Country Store on the far west side of Nashville, a store known for its extreme right. Recently went on the market. Gabrielle Hansen was the real estate agent who got the listing. A recent investigation by the Southern Poverty Law Center was being used as a white nationalist fight club. Lewis responded in a post on Telegram calling himself an Hansen. The people you're with have described themselves as literal Nazis. Is this the type of people you should be associating with? Literal Nazis?
Again, Phil Williams is just wrecking her, waving a cell phone in Hansen's face and asking, this or what? And doing it loud enough for the whole road to hear. Also, what on earth did that cursed Zillow listing look like? Your business in this income-generating 3-unit mixed-use white supremacist building. First floor is a store with terrible vibes, and the second floor unit is a neo-is. Now, Hansen denies engaging that group as security, despite the fact that she walked into that meeting with a Holocaust denier while a Proud Boy's face tattoo. And she's tried to deflect criticism over the fact that she took a literal Nazi's real estate listing and bold choices.
If you based me on all the clients that I'm representing currently, I would be a white supremacist, neo-Nazi, being like my one client, and I would be black too. So that is who I would be if you're going to blame me for the clients at this very moment that I'm representing. And I would probably be a Muslim jihadist as well because I have a Middle Eastern client too.
Okay, Gabs, but you did just imply one of your clients was a Muslim jihadist simply based on the fact that they are Middle Eastern, white supremacist neo-Nazi than you are lesbian or black. And look, in a world that made sense, this woman from this mayoral race in shame, but she still has supporters. There are lawn signs up for her in Franklin, and there is a real chance that she could turn numerous scandals are clearly almost cartoonish in their extremity. Her behaviour is entirely emblematic of Republican politics from the local, where if we learned anything this week, it's that far-right Republicans maintain a vice-like grip over the entire party. And if Franklin going forward, might be if we can somehow get more reporters to take a page from Nashville's nosiest bitch. And now,
people on TV share increasingly unhinged conspiracy theories about Taylor Swift.
Okay, have Travis Kelce dating?
Is that the big question?
That's the big question. Everybody's on.
It just makes you think, is there something else going on? Like, is Taylor sane? I don't know. You're investigating. There's so many conspiracy theories about this.
Is anything really a coincidence these days? Is anything accidental?
No.
I say, where's the conspiracy involved here?
Floor Director Megan thinks that this is all a cover-up to conceal Taylor's true boy. So Travis is doing Taylor solid.
The NFL was struggling to get women to watch football. And there is a part of me that's like,
we're getting ready to release, right? The theme for this album is the color red. Travis Kelce plays for the Chiefs. They are a big red team. He was also born an emotional tool, Travis.
Okay, so Taylor Swift is from Philadelphia originally, that maybe she's actually trying to mess with Travis.
She knows that they're going to get to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And the theory is
she's going to eventually ghost him at that point.
Okay.
It rose all the way to the White House, though. The White House press secretary was even asked about the potential romance.
The President, vernacular of the National Security Council, I can neither confirm or deny those reports.
The story tonight concerns school. For some, it's the place to make lifelong friends and enjoy first crushes, while for others, and I'm not naming names, different. Specifically, we're going to talk about homeschooling. During the pandemic, many parents were suddenly forced to do it, and while some struggled, others thrived.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, I, N, Z. Now you know your ABC.
That is clearly excellent, but it is also to make other parents look like total shit. Because that is significantly better than anything I did with my kids during the pandemic. It was much more hiding in the closet, praying they would not find me. Also, quick shout out to the baby on the counter, living her best life. What's going on? But yet there she is in the centre of it all, like Mariah Carey on a New Year's broadcast. Now that family, like med school, but for some, homeschooling isn't just a pandemic-era necessity, it's a way of life. And you may have heard a stereotype of homeschool object to what kids learn in public school environments, and I admit those people do exist. Take this man who offers this pretty shaky rationalisation.
I think the type of content on what they're teaching about sex or anal sex, that my classroom where a teacher or someone else is teaching her about that.
And that was your experience in school?
I through friends those ages, because mine was only in first grade in the cold.
Well, that sounds like total bullshit. Although I guess I do definitely not happening should continue not to happen. But the truth is, the homeschooling community is much broader than just right lube demonstrations. By one estimate, there are now around 2 million children being homeschooled in this country, and parents can choose that for kids have social or health problems or disabilities that aren't being accommodated. Maybe they're families with legitimate fears about school safety or who are in the military. A growing number of black parents opting to homeschool due to whitewashed curriculums and zero-tolerance policies in schools that disproportionately criminalise their lots of reasons to do it. And the fact is, for some kids, getting to be homeschooled can be genuinely transformative.
I had to take her out of Detroit schools. She says she was being bullied relentlessly for her appearance, and it didn't seem like her administrators cared.
You know, or not want to ask specific questions because I'm like, are they going to call me dumb?
When you transitioned to homeschooling, how did you...
Confident. It was just like a sunshine, like the clouds opening a little bit.
That's great. That is very you usually hear me say after a clip on this show. It's usually a variation of that's horrible, that's heartbreaking, or shut the fuck up, you baby bitch. This is a welcome change of pace. The point is the ceiling of how good homeschooling can be is admittedly very hard. Bad it can get is basically non-existent. Because to an extent that you may not realise, in many parts of the country, homeschooling is essentially enormous damage. So given that, tonight, let's take a look at homeschooling. And let's start with the fact there is a lot that we don't know about homeschooled kids from exactly learning. When I said there are around 2 million of them, the reason that's an estimate is that, depending on the state, homeschool families might not have to report what they are doing. In 26 states, parents simply have to file a notice once a year with officials to let them know that they are homeschooling their child. In these 13, they only have to file a notice to check in ever again. And in the remaining 11, they don't have to notify anyone at all. And when it comes to the education itself, supervision stops, as in most states, there is no oversight and no evaluation by anyone of the academic programme and of students' That is not a concern. And the parents will simply come up with all sorts of innovative ways to teach their kids. Here is one parent, enthusiastically...
I can't tell you how many times, in my home, in our kitchen table, we've dissected, sheep eyeballs or frogs. Great labs for this kind of thing.
Where does somebody get a sheep eyeball?
Well, John, you can just Google. Lots of people. Absolutely.
Okay, first, are kitchens the best lab for this kind of thing? I'm just saying, maybe don't go dissecting sheep eyeballs in the same place where you cut olives for salad. Also, do not bite what that man just said. I did it, and I'm not even going to show you the result unblurred because it is too nauseating. Suffice to say, it looks like whole. And while that man was clearly willing to go to impressive lengths for at-home science lessons, not everyone has to develop a curriculum from scratch. That is why there are big publishers who offer materials specifically tailored to homeschoolers, and many Christian textbook publishers who promise learning through a biblical filter. And look, it is absolutely a parent's right they so choose, but the quality of some of these books can be troubling. For instance, one current Abeka history book says the brutal breakdown that threatened to destroy the very roots of Western civilization, the cause of this dissolution was an idea or philosophy known as liberalism. CE celebrates the Confederate General Robert E. Lee as a devoted Christian who practiced his Christianity in all his dealings with others. And claims that biblical and scientific evidence tends to support the idea that men and dinosaurs existed at the same time. And if you're wondering what, we had a workbook featuring this rendering, implying that not only did men and dinosaurs exist at the same time, but they were totally cool. Great tucked-in shirt. Do you see that dinosaur over there? Sure do, Bob. Love those jeans, by the way. Should we run? No way. These dinos are chill. Let's one sword knife that you brought. Well, all of that is pretty troubling. The truth is, in many states, the rules and parents don't ultimately have to teach their kids anything at all. Just watch as this former homeschool student breaks down her daily schedule.
A list of assignments. We've got the date at the top. I would have been 12. First, we've got classical music, which was just turning on classical bit. We've got Bible listening. We've got handwriting and math. That's fairly normal. We've got memorizing the Bible. We've got, it was mostly hymns. We've got exercise. That's good. It was usually just walking around the block. And then the whole is chores and cleaning tasks.
It's true. Most of her lessons just list. That is a lot of cleaning demands. Who was her parent? This guy? I mean, don't get me wrong. He's an absolute zaz, but as hot as he makes doing chores seem, it's not an adequate alternative to education, is it? Although it is a preferable alternative to the single worst homeschool curriculum that we found, whose creators excitedly promoted it on a podcast.
We are invested into making sure that that child becomes a wonderful Nazi. And that done.
Well, that is terrifying. You never want to hear a mother lovingly utter the sentence, "My kids are wonderful now," if they're praising their son's performance as Rolf in The Sound of Music. And even then, just say wonderful Rolf. What's wrong with you? And her husband actually launched their own online community, Dissident Homeschool, in 2021 after she had a, quote, rough time finding for her homeschool children. And you know what? Good! That probably shouldn't be an easy Google. In fact, should probably autocorrect to, "Did you mean how do I take myself to jail?" At one point, Distant Homeschool had nearly 2,500 handwriting exercises consisting of writing out quotes from Adolf Hitler, which I think we can all agree is just appalling. Handwriting's just cruel. They should be working on their keyboard skills through games like Maybe Speaking Teaches the Final Solution, although not that, don't actually. The channel also posted tips ensuring that their parents were in full compliance with the law so that the state wouldn't interfere. In most states, they don't have much to worry about there, because when it comes to homeschooling, basically anything goes. So, how's... Well, in large part, it's thanks to a very powerful homeschooling lobby, whose most prominent player is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, or HF. I will concede some ground, because it grew out an environment that was, in many places, overly restrictive of homeschooling, with some banning it entirely. In Texas in the early 1980s, homeschooling families were actually prosecuted. But a turning point came after several suit against their school districts and ultimately won. And around that same time, the HSLDA was formed with the aim of expanding the rights of homeschoolers. And from the very beginning, it had a strong evangelical conservative outlook. Its founding president and chairman, Michael Farris, has referred to monstrosity. And here he is back in 2004 speaking to the Christian Coalition and describing his long-term hopes for the next generation.
To recognize what's going on, the promotion of homosexuality, the promotion of other kinds of things that you heard from Walter Jones, and you've heard many other times. Reality that we cannot countenance. I can't wait for the day when our young people vanquish the enemy by versus Wade. And the specter of same-sex marriage. That's the standard of victory.
Okay, there is a lot that is hard to take in that clip, that gotten half of it, and that he's saying vanquish the enemy, despite looking less like a warrior and more like your tax accountant's assistant. Extensively from a hard-right perspective on issues that have nothing to do with homeschooling, opposing everything from vaccine mandates to significant a force it is, that even some parents who are uneasy with its political leanings feel that they have no choice but to be members. Calling group to offer an alternative to what she saw as a whitewashed curriculum, talking about her relationship to the HSLDA.
Whenever there's a threat to homeschool, you will see us come together. You know, I mean, we're not going to stay together, but we will band up because we all our right to homeschool. And that's the nuanced aspect of being in the homeschool world. The people that you have to work with in order to dear are also the people who crush you.
It's true. The HSLDA have made themselves working with them even if they don't agree with everything they stand for. It's a dilemma otherwise known as the Tom Cruise conundrum. On the one hand, on the other, a billion-year contract to an alien mafia. It's tricky, right? It's tricky. What's a bunch of young hots to do? Plus, Tom Cruise will probably never die. As a lobbying group, it's been astonishingly successful. In 4 decades, its efforts have been credited with homeschooling in state after state. And the argument that it will always make against any regulation is you're just punishing all the parents doing things who are doing it wrong. And in theory, sure. But when you've got some parents running the Homeschool Institute of Dishwashing and others running, maybe the reins have gotten a little loose. And the lack of regulation here has serious consequences, and not just regarding quality. This is where this story gets quite a bit darker.
More than 2 million children are being homeschooled in the U.S., many of them living regulations, making it easy for abusive parents to hide behind the system. These are the faces of just some of the homeschooled children who Susanna Grubbs was homeschooled in Missouri. She tells us the discipline she received was anything but gentle.
I think that in a lot of ways, me and my siblings, with my mom's disciplinary techniques and my mom's educational neglect, it's really terrible that it has happened and it keeps happening, because parental rights are so paramount to anything else in this country.
Exactly. And that is massively dangerous, because deregulating homes against parents who are bad teachers, it also eliminates them against parents who are bad people. For all the HSLDA's talk of parental rights, O.J. Simpson is a parent. Darth Vader is such a parent. He made it part of his fancy name change. The point is, cute, virtuous. And one of the key problems here is child welfare laws were written before homeschooling was legal. It rely heavily on the premise that a child is going to be in school and seen by other adults. As this DA explains.
All of our schools, teachers and school administrators are mandated reporters. So, if a child comes to school with bruises or any way that it gets reported.
Right, because the fact is teachers serve multiple functions at school in addition to education. They watch out for signs and they pretend not to know why Ellie won't sit next to Rachel won't sit next to Kelsey is not talking to Ethan, even though Ethan's having a joint birthday party with Rachel's boyfriend since last period. And they do all of that while also trying to teach long division. Teachers are superheroes who should make $1 million. You probably see the fact that it is possible to pull a kid out of school with no questions asked or be exploited by abusive parents, especially as most states don't even screen homeschool parents for red flags. 48 process for parents who choose to homeschool. In fact, even if you have a prior conviction of a crime against a child, you can homeschool them. 80 students withdrawn in 6 districts to be homeschooled. 138 lived in families that were the subject of at least one prior report. And yet, despite this, at every turn, the HSLDA has vigorously fought efforts to put any then president in 2015, explaining why they fight all regulations, even ones explicitly designed to prevent child abuse.
Any child, whether they be a non-homeschool child or parent, whether they be a homeschool parent, they can abuse their children. They have the potential, just a few. Why should we, for just a few, invade all of the other innocent parents? That's prior restraint. It's unconstitutional.
Are there some categories of regulations around homeschooling that you would support that you don't think of as an...
No, not any.
Okay, it is bad enough that he's arguing for a total lack of regulation there, but the fact of his mouth before doing so somehow makes it worse. He looks like a cat went to a Zoltar machine and made a wish to be Andy Griffith. LDA views any oversight whatsoever as an attack, even offering members a 24-hour hotline in case of a visit from the state. The woman you saw earlier, explaining how they would practice what to do if Child Protective Services showed up on their doorstep.
The parent would lock the front door, call Defense Association on the phone, hand the phone out the kitchen window, and us kids were supposed to hide in the basement. We actually did drills in case someone ever decided to check in on our well-being.
Holy shit, that is dark. Drill getting hurt, not to avoid getting help. It's why fire alarms say pull here in case of emergency and not snitches get stitches. Admitted membership, the HSLDA has the power to stop any kind of oversight in its tracks. Take Rayleigh's Law, named after an 8-year-old girl in West Virginia who was reported for abuse. She died of neglect only a few weeks later. Now, eventually, legislators proposed a law that would prevent parents from withdrawing a childhood abuse or neglect investigation, or when a parent has been convicted of domestic violence, child abuse, or neglect. And it seems like that law, but the legislator who proposed it found out, not so much.
There were groups, I want to say, there's like this homeschool defense fund against Rayleigh's Law.
The HSLDA.
That's it. And there were quotes about how awful this bill was, and it's an attack on homeschool, the goalposts. That's what you do in politics, but I always thought maybe protecting children, you wouldn't actually go about that.
Right, and if the HSLDA thinks trying to protect kids from being taken out of school by people convicted of child abuse is an attack on homeschooling, they're saying quite a bit who be. If Chili's responded to a health inspector writing their workers up for pissing in the skillet queso with, "This is an attack on everything the majority of our staff, for the minority who piss and shit in our Presidente margaritas," could have some questions about what Chili's thinks it's for. That man's bill never passed. And that story's been repeated in state after state after state. As one legislative aide who has gone up and never seen a lobby more powerful and scary, and a legislator in Arkansas who tangled with them says, "They told me the only legislation they was nothing." At a certain point, it starts to feel like the HSLDA is basically the homeschooling equivalent of the NRA. An extremely powerful, large number of people pursues an outermost fringe version of their agenda. So, where do we go from here? Well, in a perfect case, we're both safe and actually receiving a functional education, and there are smaller organisations like this one pushing for those sort. We could require in all 50 states to register a child as homeschooled, so there's at least a record that they exist here, at the Earth's core, which I'm sure, according to at least one homeschooling textbook, is somewhere between soil and the fiery bowels of beyond that. We could pass some basic child safety protections to ensure parents can't pull their kids out of school to escape scrutiny for a credit. Georgia passed a law that requires parents who pull kids out of school for no reason to send documentation within 45 days, proof of attendance at another school. If they don't do that, they're subject to a follow-up from the state. And even this Republican Georgia state rep.
The people in your world that you believe are most protective of you are torturing you or abusing you. I don't like government intervention in a lot of things, but the government's the only person I know of that can intervene in this kind of case to save a child.
Yeah, completely right. And agreeing with a staunch Republican Georgia state rep wasn't something I had on my 2023 bingo card. Moving on you-know-who to you-know-what. And to be clear, I share his ambivalence about government intervention here. I understand when in people's personal situations poses a risk, especially to those who aren't wealthy and who aren't white. It's not like I love the idea of lives or that I think our child protective services system is flawless, no notes. We're almost definitely going to be doing a main story on CP. It does seem like giving parents a get out of all scrutiny free, no questions asked card just isn't the answer here. Because being a parent moral and being with a parent doesn't automatically make a child safe. And the truth is, a few extra security measures wouldn't homeschool their children responsibly, but they definitely safeguard against those who use personal liberty as an excuse to neglect or harm their kids. Not that it doesn't support Nazis or child abusers, but the fact is, the policies that it relentlessly pushes for allow them to just shouldn't be remotely controversial. Because after all, this is about child welfare. This isn't rocket science. It's not even, don't Google it by the way, I cannot emphasize that enough. All of this is just basic common sense. And now, this.
The surprising importance of emojis on divorce court.
Now, my understanding, because I had to have somebody explain to me, is the conversation has occurred through emoji and GIF, in which you posted a woman you're in a state of sexual excitation.
Your Honor, she's a talented surfer who sends peach emojis. Well, were you sending water splashing emojis to your ex?
Yes, it was.
Did you to your cousin?
Why would she send you cucumber and eggplant emojis?
She has a bit of sense of humor, but I didn't feel it.
That ain't funny.
When you're sorry to leave a drooling face emoji, and why was she saved in your phone as a blueberry?
Something she cute, she's sweet.
Oh, so she...
Yeah, just the first thing popped in my mind.
Found text to a guy with a smiley face with the mouth wide open and a purple thing like a...
Hey, I mean, smoking gun. That's a smoking gun.
Next week, tonight.
Hello, xin chào tất cả anh em. Hôm nay mình đang một video làm việc của mình. Anh em xem video thì cho mình